this sort of just falls on her decision. She can decide, so she can get input from the lawyers, but she can decide what to do in this situation. And she says, I don't think it's been long enough. Does that mean it hasn't been long enough for that Allen charge to be issued, or just overall it hasn't been long enough? Because she didn't issue whatever. We can go back and listen, if somebody can go back and listen to say
I think you're saying that it's not long enough for the Allen charge to be issued, because the Allen charge is basically the last resort. Is that right? Once they come back after that and say we still can't do it, then they have to go hung.
It depends on the rules. Some states say once you have an Allen charge, that's you set off the dynamite. If it doesn't clear the log jam and they come back hung, then it's over. But if Massachusetts doesn't have that rule, they could literally just re-give the Allen charge, or just say keep trying. Sorry.
Yeah, she just wanted to keep waiting until getting to that last point of Allen charge. I don't know.
I just want to say that I don't know why I'm here. I just got a message saying that people in chat were saying that you need to ask me something, and I have no idea. I was summoned and I arrived.
Somebody who rubbed your lamp. Welcome.
That is not nice to ask on a family channel. No, I'm joking.
Welcome. Let's just skip that. Well, we just had a question. Supposedly we had a question from the jury, but it was them announcing that they're hung.
Oh, do you know what it could be? It could be about why South Africa doesn't have juries. Maybe that's what people are wanting to know.
Yeah.
And it's for the reason that the average Joe who hasn't studied law for many years struggles to understand the intricacies of each law and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and what is fair and what is not fair, and actually can't be unbiased. Therefore, we just don't have juries.
So you just have professionals decide a case. Is it a panel?
So there's a judge. So there's one judge, and then there's two people who can kind of call the judge out if they disagree. And then also, like, it's pretty easy to appeal here, and you can appeal a certain number of times, and then it goes to constitutional court to make sure that the ruling was constitutional. But that doesn't have that much to do with juries. It's more just that judges can't, like, for example, with Tucker's trial, it was very clear that the judge hated him. So to appeal an appeal, it would make sense then to go to constitutional court, because is it constitutional that they're charging him? Is there bias, etc.? That also allows there to be a lot of different people making the decisions.
Yeah. Interesting. I like the jury idea. I like actually that it's a trial of my peers, right? That it's not a bunch of professionals looking at it. They're people that live where I live, that understand life the way it happens around me, and they're deciding. So for me, it's risky, because you know, who are you going to get? You could get Joe from down the road.
Tucker, though. Yeah, that wasn't Tucker's peers. That was a bunch of super rich Florida Keys mansion living.
In his defense,
like the homeless people, like,
he is very much in the minority down there, I think. You know, the way he lives is very different.
That's the reason why we don't have juries as well, because of the history and minority and etc.
Yeah.
Jules has an interesting update in the chat.
Say that a little slower and louder, Greeners.
Right. Jules has an interesting update in chat that she has two of her sources in what's CR. So that two of the jurors are nodding their heads and wanted to go back. So it's not like two still want to keep going. There it is.
Oh.
Interesting.
That's the observation from the courtroom, that two of the jurors were nodding their heads and wanted to go back and redeliberate, or wanted lunch. One of the two. I'm not sure which one. It could be either. But interesting. So it's. I wonder if the foreman's the holdout.
Why can't we see this happening? Why are we fanning?
We watched it already. It happened.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was right before you joined us. Corina Bowman, welcome.
Hi.
Let's sit down in the corner there. Sorry about that. Say hi, introduce yourself. What's on your mind?
Hi, I'm Karina. I just wanted to pop on. I'm headed to a work event. We're doing duck pen bowling. I hopped on because I'm in the minority here. Like,
Oh, wonderful.
the very, very seldom two of us. Now, I did say I think she's still guilty, but there's reasonable doubt. So then she should be acquitted. However, if the jury is thinking the long way that I am, or at least one or two of them, then they're probably going to hold out until they see some kind of evidence to change their mind, which is why I think they're in hung jury, which is also what I voted in the poll, which was a hung jury.
Wonderful. So tell me, so when you say you're in the minority, you believe that she was involved, but that it hasn't been proven? Is that your position?
Yes, I believe there was something there because this investigation was botched from the beginning. I think there was something there that could have happened if she did know or didn't know. And then they just couldn't prove it, which obviously, you can't take that to trial if you have no evidence, and then you can't convict her if you don't have any evidence. So that's where I stand. So I'm not saying she should be convicted because there's no evidence, but I just have this, gut feeling that she is, but you can't, convict on gut feelings either. So that's where I am. And I think a couple of jury members probably feel the same way, but they might not have that logic of reasonable doubt to say, okay, well, she's not guilty.
Yeah, interesting. El Teddy, I came to a different conclusion about this fact itself, about her taillight being intact. The video, when I slowed it down and looked at it, to me, it looks like a large portion of her taillight is missing, like not just cracked, but missing when you slow down frame by frame as the car's leaving the driveway. And that was before anybody knew. And those pieces that were missing in that picture were recovered at the crime scene. That tells me that something happened there.
Yes.
But, and I was thinking, obviously there's got to be a hit, but the witness that from the state or from the FBI that talked about the cup and the cup breaking it and building the cannon and replicating the brakes, for me, having the cup break and the taillight shatter, that makes sense. I can't see the taillight shattering from hitting John O'Keefe.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that put me in the ballpark of, yes, something did happen, but it might not have involved John O'Keefe, at least not with his body in the car.
So Evie asked Anna's question, how do you dispute the scientific evidence? And my answer to that would be, if it wasn't properly gathered, then I cannot take it as scientific, because the way that they gathered it means that I don't believe in any of their science.
What's interesting, this is probably the first case where we've had like computer log data that's been interpreted two completely different ways as well, which has been interesting as well. The cell phone data, the butt dials, we have what we thought would just be hard evidence, right? You can print it off and see what happened. And we have experts that are telling us two different things happened, from the movements, from the positioning of the phone, from the car moving back and forth, what happened where. So even the hard evidence is being disputed.
Yeah.
The other hard evidence, the touch DNA on the taillight, not blood, but touch DNA on the taillight, right? That could have been there anywhere. It could have been from anywhere. It's a known acquaintance. It's a car that he was in previously, that he was around. It's his girlfriend's car. So
if there was any DNA found on the inside of the taillight, then I believe it more.
Case closed.
With all that other evidence they found days and weeks later with the taillights, I cannot connect any. I have a hard time accepting anything connected to the taillight as evidence because of the way it was found, the way it was documented. There's too much doubt. So personally, for me, I have to remove that part, because if it's not gotten appropriately, then it can't be considered. Am I wrong?
Usually fruit of the poisonous tree, if it was collected illegally, it would be excluded from court. Say like they searched without a warrant. It didn't have reasonable suspicion or probable cause. that would have excluded any evidence. But this was in the evidence gathering portion. They didn't follow protocols and even their own documentation guidelines.
They left the scene. Everybody left. They didn't leave anybody to monitor scene. They didn't preserve the scene. Then they go back hours and days later. That's where I'm having an issue. Go ahead, love.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because I made Adam a manager on my channel. Can you believe it? That was a wild decision, and I was tired. But
we all make
that's
mistakes.
why he's being tagged and things. Yeah. I actually realized that I was summoned for a StreamYard question, so no court expertise.
I was struggling with
that
no
was me too.
Necessary.
with the layout.
But you're not banned, right? You're not banned. You're good. You're good. I didn't ruin anything. You might
did a
have
good
one
job.
less mod, but
I do.
the channel's fine.
I think
But also,
question.
you're a mod, so that's done now, I guess.
Yeah, I tried to unmod myself and it didn't let me. So
We've got is it Shark?
It's Shark.
Shark, welcome, Shark. Quick introduction. Where are you, and what's on your mind?
I am in a small town called Childress, Texas, up in the Texas Panhandle. I'm currently on lunch, so I'm just gonna pop in for a little bit here because I've been sitting here thinking about these juries that can't come to a decision.
What was your take on the hung jury? Do you think that they followed the instructions? Do you think there's a holdout?
I think there's holdouts. Maybe one, maybe more. And I'll tell you why, because I've been noticing this slow uptick in hung juries. They used to be pretty uncommon. And pardon me if a cat jumps into frame. I've got a couple in here with me. Is a boy. But anyway, so my thinking, I don't know a lot about the Karen Reed case, unfortunately. Like I mentioned a couple days ago, I kind of got distracted by tornadoes. But I've noticed basically in all social aspects, people are having trouble like evaluating evidence as it comes in order to change their decisions, change their opinions on things, not just in court, but in real life as well for a lot of things, because it's a very like team player mindset. This is my team. I'm going to be ride or die for this team. And so I think you mentioned it yesterday. If a juror comes in with the conviction, oh, she's guilty, their job then in their mind is to convince everyone else to change their mind. They're not going to sit there and think, well, maybe I'm the one that needs to change my mind. And I think that's an education issue. Just
how do you do that? Is that something you do as a jury instruction, or is there an exercise the court needs to perform with the jury to sort of get them into that mindset? This is what it looks like to come in unbiased. This is what it looks like to rethink your position. This is what it looks like to argue the points that are most detrimental to your current position. How do you get the jury to rethink critically where they stand?
I think they need a process.
Yeah, and I think it starts way before they get into the courtroom. I think this starts in like elementary school.
Can you imagine a class in elementary school, public education, required education that teaches you about the legal process and the duties of your role as a juror?
I mean,
Is
I
that
had
not something you
effectively that
should
in
know
high
in order
school.
to be a juror?
Vicky's
Yeah,
like, this is
I
why.
had it in high school.
What was it called? Was it just civics? Was it?
It was called theory of knowledge, and the whole idea was you go into class and you argue. You're presented with a topic, and you can pick your side on the topic, and you argue your side. And we argued everything from like literary analysis to serious ethical questions. And you can kind of jump or bunch that together with a comprehensive science education where you teach the evaluation and gathering of evidence. And you learn that it's okay to be mistaken. It's okay to change your mind, because the goal is not to win, it's to be the most correct you can be.
So that class flies right in the face of the debate high school class, where the person who says the most words in the shortest amount of time wins. It's just who can
Yeah, I
talk
didn't do
fast.
debate.
So they taught critical thinking.
Yes.
Like, that's something that when I went to high school, like not all that long ago, it was significantly lacking. Like, learning critical thinking in school is something that just doesn't happen much anymore.
Yeah, I graduated in 2008, so I have no idea what changed between now and then.
Yeah, I've noticed, like, people have a harder time critically thinking. They take things at face value, and they don't look at the outside things to change their opinions. Like, they get set in one way, and they can't see the reasons to change their opinion.
I think the Gen Zs and the Gen Alpha and whatever they're called, I think they're a lot more critical thinking minded than millennials, Gen X, boomers. I think that they question so much more than we did. So maybe they don't have to teach it in school because they're just like, that's just their norm. They just don't go like, yes, because other generations did it, we'll do it.
But cynicism and skepticism are not the same thing, because like, and then I'll say the difference. If you question everything, you'd say, oh well, at least you're questioning everything, but not everything deserves the same amount of scrutiny. Joe Schmo down the road, who works at the local feed store, he starts talking about complex
Great guy, by the way.
rocket science. Joe Schmo down the road is my homie, man.
That's my
But
spirit animal.
he's talking complex rocket science, and he says something that doesn't align with what I know about physics. I have a right to be extremely skeptical of what he has to say. But if a rocket scientist who is outstanding in his field, currently employed by NASA and has been for 20 years, says something about rocket science, I don't really have any justification to be more than slightly skeptical of what he has to say, unless it also flies in the face of everything we know about physics. So like the problem with cynicism, is there are experts. And if you question an expert the same way you question a rando on the street, you'll never get anywhere, first off. And like,
I disagree.
In the trial, we had experts in the trial that came to vastly different conclusions, but that's where you as a juror have to say, like, what comports with the evidence and what sounds like they were looking for the softest possible read on this.
With
credibility,
the jurors are given the instruction that with all witnesses, they can judge their credibility. It's not just that, it's not just the witnesses that have been, impeached, right? They can look at every witness and even if they're not, the rocket scientists, they can say, yeah, but this guy's talking about stuff that just, I don't buy it. It doesn't pass the smell test, and the jury can do that. So I think the jury is right, even using a gut instinct, if it's something that they could morally stand to and make a decision based on, in deciding whether something is credible or not.
I have
so
something.
Just as an example, women weren't even tested for ADHD until the 70s because experts did not believe women could have ADHD.
I have ADHD.
So do I. I will forever question experts because there's so many things that are just accepted, and we have the grace of access to the internet. We can do our own digging. We can be cynical and we can be skeptical about literally anything we want.
So,
but at the same time, sorry, go ahead.
Something that along those lines, knowledge and credibility are not the same thing. Because what I've noticed in trials recently, because I have an IT background, because I understand a lot of this stuff and I dig deeper on what these experts say, like I do research on what these experts are talking about to actually understand it. These experts are very knowledgeable, but they're not credible. Like, they're taking their knowledge and the data and coming to a conclusion that is less than honest. And just because they're experts, their credibility is what matters. Like, Joe Schmo down the street, what is his credibility? Like, do you know, is he a known liar? Is he someone who exaggerates everything? Well, maybe don't trust him on rocket science. But if he's someone who likes to learn and does research on these random things and comes to you all the time with all these weird facts that no one needs to know, but he finds interesting, maybe there's a little bit more credibility. Obviously, he's not an expert. But I think one of the most credible witnesses we had was Lucky, who was not an expert, but he was by far the most credible. He was just honest. Like, and I think the only honest experts we had were the FBI experts, because they had zero skin in the game.
They seemed credible to me because of their impartiality.
Yeah, exactly.
That added a lot to it.
Exactly.
Whereas I did lose a lot of the credibility I felt that the Trooper Paul had, just by his inability to answer basic questions about the field that he claimed to be an expert in. That I lost a lot on that one. And he probably knows more about that field than I do. I mean, he's probably forgotten more than I ever knew. But still, I can.
But what is he hiding?
Yeah, it looked to me like I can't trust anything that he said, unfortunately. And he may have been right, but I can't believe it. We've welcomed Jules and Sim to the channel. Sim no camera. Jules, briefly. Greeners, we'll see you.
I'm not a camel, but maybe I'll be back on later. Thank you.
All right, we are limited to just 10 people on the screen, so
bye.
If anyone wants to drop off, we can let other people in. But Lisa as well. Lisa, we forgot to welcome you. Lisa, welcome. Where are you from?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. All right. And Sim, where are you at? I don't know if we have Sim. I'll put her in the green room again for a little bit. Jules, I've met you. You're in Florida. How are you doing?
The notorious Jules.
Yeah, that would be me. Well, Scott, I woke up this morning. I went out last night because I didn't want to watch the debate. And then I got woken up early this morning because I have 2 contacts in the courtroom. And they're like, you better get up and you better be ready. They're all dressed up. So my thing was, when I heard that, and when I was doing the Maya trial and reporting for you, and I told you they came in dressed up, verdict, which was true, I thought, okay, we're going to have a verdict today. Now with what happened, in my opinion, because we all know I'm not a lawyer, just a court watcher, I honestly think that they made a decision yesterday, and that's why they wanted to go home to sleep on it. And given the fact that they all came in dressed up, they were going to give a verdict. And I think once they got back into that jury room and they started talking, one or more changed their minds.
They're like, I thought about it overnight. I just can't. I don't feel good about this. I'm backing out. And now they're like, but I dressed up for nothing.
So
in my uncomfortable clothes.
That's where I'm going with this. That's my only thought on it. I am curious to know, though, did they reach a verdict on the main charge and they changed their minds, or something happened with the lesser included?
I hate the lesser included. Like, that's such a messy and confusing system.
It really is. I agree with you on that.
It doesn't seem fair to me either. It seems like you're getting multiple attempts to to convict
And
someone.
so yeah, and I thought they would maybe they were going to split. Not that I agree with this, because I don't, but I'm thinking, did they think, okay, we're going to split the baby here and give her a not guilty on the second degree murder and give her a guilty on one or both of the lesser charges?
The problem is the courtroom is not politics, or it shouldn't be. In politics, oftentimes we make compromises, right? We have people on different sides. We try to see where we have an agreement. We say, well, I'll give this ground, you give that ground. In the courtroom, it's either you did it or you didn't, right? Either you're guilty or you're not. And if we have 5 on one side and 5 on the other, it's like, all right, we'll compromise and do a lesser included. No,
It's not even that. If it's not even did you do it or not. They don't care if you did it or not. It's does the evidence show beyond a reasonable doubt that you did it or might have done it.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
here's the thing. Sorry, I'm gonna pipe up.
Amber, go
real
ahead.
quick because I've been waiting patiently and I've got to get back to work too. So what everybody needs to remember here is not really what your theory is, right? At the end of the state's case, when the state rested their case, were you convinced beyond any and all reasonable doubt that Karen Reed backed into John O'Keefe and he landed in the yard like he did, and she was responsible for his demise? Now, if you think she was involved, that is still a not guilty vote. You cannot vote based off of emotion. The justice system is designed to go off of any and all reasonable doubt. And the law is spelled out for you on what that means and what you have to come to in conclusion in order to get to a guilty or not guilty vote. I guarantee you, if there's somebody on the jury right now that's saying guilty because they just quote unquote feel like she really did it, but they can't really explain how or how they're convinced or
Then it's
what
not
really
guilty.
did it for them. If they cannot do that and actually express these things in the jury room, that's not a true vote, in my humble opinion.
No,
And
I agree.
if that's how something like this is handled, every one of those jurors that disagreed with that one juror is going to out them when everything goes public, because they're going to say this was not fair. We've seen it in how many trials where jurors call people out because they're not following rules or somebody is following the rules too closely.
Do we need to change the voir dire process to sort of weed out those that are unable to think critically and follow instructions as a juror?
That would be a great idea.
Yeah.
But the problem is they want those people who don't think critically, because their job as attorneys is to convince a person. And so they want someone who can buy what they're selling. So the voir dire process, if anything, is encouraging and rewarding attorneys for finding the people who are easiest to convince. And people who are easy to convince are not necessarily easy to change their mind.
I agree with that. I would like to ask everybody on the panel their opinion of what Lolly's response was to the judge.
So by that, let me go over and say what it was. The judge read the "we're hung" letter. Lally said, "I don't think they've put in enough time. We've had some half days. It's just they haven't put in their due diligence to really look at this." He must think that he's winning.
I would agree on that. At the very least, they don't want to come back on a hung jury, because a hung jury means there's a chance that this all happens again.
Does Yannetti think they're losing, or does he think they won't retry it?
That's what I thought, Braxton, and the reason why I'm with you on that is because if in fact they do hang, Lolly is definitely going to want to retry this. I do not think Karen Reed is going to be able to come up with the financial issues to be able to have the same legal team defend her a second time around. And I think Lolly knows that.
I disagree, Jules. I think because a lot of the legal fund for Karen Reed has been crowdsourced, I don't think she's going to be without this legal team at all whatsoever.
Yeah, I think Karen's in a different spot than, say, like the Kelly trial, the rancher. And he would have been in a tough spot. It just, in the moment, he got a little bit of crowdfunding to support his defense. I think that was sort of, it passed, the bubble passed. But Karen Reed, it's just grown and grown and grown. I think if they do try to retry, I think she would be in a better situation to crowdfund legal expenses, which are getting harder to do nowadays because a lot of the companies don't want to be involved in supporting somebody who's charged criminally for something.
I think that now that we've seen what the evidence is, there'll be more sympathy to crowdfund her defense.
Yes.
Maybe.
And that's
Exactly.
I'm worried also about the community. I don't know if this community could survive another trial like this. I mean, this trial is millions of dollars on the community in expense. I know they're getting money from all the people there, but this is tearing this community up. And I'm worried not just for Karen, but the children, the families, everybody involved. Being in that boat before as a spouse, it's so horrible. I would hate to see this in a hung jury. And by the way, while I'm speaking, Jules, never met you before, but thank you for what you did with the Maya. I was hanging on it, every word. I've just been YouTubing, 3 months now, Recovery Addict? But I'm honored to be in your presence. Nice to meet you.
Oh, well, I'm very humbled, and listen, all the thanks and the props actually go to Scott, because had he not allowed me to call in on a regular basis, I just would have been reporting strictly on my TikTok. So it all goes to him. So thank you, Scott.
You're too kind. Jules was our eyes in court. It's wonderful to have somebody who can give us something that we can't see anywhere else, and did phenomenally.
I'll be in
and
court
took the
on
heat
August
for it as
1st.
well.
I'll be in court on August 1st for the sanction hearing.
That's gonna be awesome. Keep us in the loop on that.
I hate to take away from this, but where are we at with the Maya trial?
Sanctions.
We are on sanctions. Judge Carroll will hear that at 1:30 p.m. on August 1st. A lot of the sanctions that were brought against each other, a lot of them, both sides withdrew the majority of them. So there's really only 3 that are going to be heard for that. Whether he makes a decision at the bench, I don't know. We'll find out then. There was something filed on June 18th. I'm not going to place too much emphasis on it, but it seems that the Kowalski team did file a settlement offer to Jay Hatch.
That was going to be the next question.
They did, but I can promise you this: there's no way. I don't know what it was. That's
that'll never be disclosed.
Yeah, but I can promise you this: that there is no way Hunter and Shapiro and company will ever accept any settlement offer. So, but that was done on June 18th. And as far as the family is concerned, they are doing very well. They are living their life. They've got back some of their normalcy, which is a good thing. Maya was accepted at the University of Miami. However, she was supposed to start in August, but she decided to defer and she's going to do a little bit of traveling just to clear her head, and and then she will start in for the spring semester instead of the fall semester.
That family needs to do that. They really need to decompress. This has destroyed them in some sense, but now they need to take the opportunity to rebuild their family, discover who they are, their
Have a
identity.
life.
So wrapped up in this for so long, and they need to discover themselves again. And Maya is going to be an amazing young woman, and her brother's going to be an amazing young man. The
Yeah.
father's going to do well, but it's
They are.
to heal,
They
and it
are.
took years after going through a trial to heal.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
This is the
I'm not.
current
I
interest
never.
counter, by the way. 8.3 million.
Isn't that something? I never went to college. I never took what do they call it, SATs or any of that stuff. But
Yeah.
I can tell you this: that Maya's SAT score was 501. Yeah, 501.
Is that ACT score? Because SAT is higher.
Yeah. All I know is that's what Jack told me,
SAT,
and
that
the
was not-
University of Miami took her in, boom, just like that.
Yeah, because SAT is maximum 1,200 or 1,800,
Yeah,
depending
all right,
on if,
well,
if they
I
do
don't
the
know.
writing.
See, I never went to college. I all I have is a high school education. That's it.
It's the equivalent, definitely the equivalent of. But I just I my heart went out to them this whole time, and I was crying when the verdict came in, just with them. And you and RA, I watched the whole thing with RA, but he didn't know I was there.
Well, lurkers.
I'm going to go ahead and hop off and go back to working myself.
I wanted to say thank you. Thanks for joining us on your lunch. I appreciate your insights. You've got a good analytical mind, and I appreciate your questions and ability to look at things that way and what you brought. Appreciate that.
I appreciate all you do. You guys have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Ari, can I get a mic check real quick?
Sounds good, Thal. But your picture looks like is that Jackson?
Jensen Ackles? No. See, there's bound to be some confusion. Me and Jensen Ackles, okay, actually look almost identical. So it's not his picture. It's my picture. No. It's my picture. Okay, it just looks like Jensen Ackles. Okay, because in my mind, I am Jensen Ackles. Okay, that's just what that is.
You identify as him. Great.
There you go.
What's
there
on your
you
mind?
go. Last time it was a pug. This time
we're moving up. What are your thoughts on the hung jury? We've had a spat of hung juries lately.
My perfectly well behaved Thal answer is that I think we have some jurors that might be lacking the enthusiasm and mental acuity to really represent the situation and therein the laws to obey in a very rigorous way. The non PC Thal answer is brutal, and I'll get punished for it. So I won't say that one.
Thank you for saying the quiet part out loud in a very eloquent way.
I'm trying for RA. I'm really trying.
Appreciate that, Paul.
It's stimulating my aggravators that there's people on the jury that are like this, and it does beg a question, though. I thought while I was sitting in silence pondering my existence. I love the dog, by the way. The dog picture is awesome, Sim.
Thank you.
It's awesome. The hello ADD. No, but the thing is that if we take those jurors, maybe something happened to where somebody has some sympathy maybe for Officer Paul. They didn't like the way he was treated. I mean, he did it to himself. No, don't, but maybe some of the juror just didn't like the approach that the defense took to Paul, because Paul may have been incompetent, but he didn't necessarily say anything as bad as Proctor. So maybe they're being punished in some way.
But by the same token, Thal, that is not how how the justice system is supposed to work.
And they were specifically given instructions to ignore that. That if you have any hard feelings or you dislike the attorneys for any reason, that has to be set aside. You've
You
just
guys
got
are
to place it on the facts.
you guys are so cute that you don't think humans human.
Hey,
that is adorable.
Oh, don't even start with me.
If
If
Proctor,
human, human, this thing would have never gotten to this point.
if Proctor can send all those text messages and not have it affect his investigation in any way, I think we can make the same assumption. We can set aside our feelings.
Proctor was having a busy day, and he didn't have his kibbles and bits and didn't have a head pat. So, I mean, maybe he was feeling a little bit frisky, and he said some things that were untoward. And I'm just saying.
Come on, he knows that this stuff can get retrieved. It's one thing if it's saying your buddy across the hall. That's one thing. But to type it in, knowing that this is the cops' major way of tracking people nowadays, that's just stupid, or you meant it.
Yeah, and on a serious note for Proctor, it's one of those things that when I talk to local PD guys and I talk to local state cops, they always I got the same message every single time, which was when I'm doing an investigation, I don't talk to anybody about it except unless it's people that are also doing the investigation. That's the only people I talk to. You don't share it with friends. You don't share it with other cops. You don't share it with family. Anybody outside that little bubble of the investigation, you do not share, period. That's what I was told.
That goes back to what we heard a couple days ago with the locals that were up around Canton and said, you guys don't understand. We've had this problem for a long time. There's a culture here where if either it's real or it's perceived, but there are groups up here who believe that there is corruption throughout the system right now. And this is just, status quo, that we see it in our government. We see it in our police. There's the haves and the have-nots, the townies and the non-townies.
But I'm just trying to kind of theorize any way that someone could look at this case and still be on the fence somehow. And I'm really struggling to, but I'm Officer Paul made me sympathies there. Maybe they say the car hit him, but we have experts that say they didn't. It's one of those things where, I'm having trouble finding why anybody would struggle with this. I can't get there.
I'm going to give my final thoughts and hop off, y'all. At the end of the day, the defense does not have to prove anything whatsoever. Period. Full stop.
That's it. Facts.
So if
they did.
The defense caused confusion and that they presented and didn't prove a conspiracy theory, it doesn't matter. The law is based on, did the state prove its case beyond any and all reasonable doubt? Everything else is irrelevant. Now, those saying that it's human nature to put feeling and emotion into this, sure. However, your former experiences and stuff like that they tell you to take into the jury room and take into consideration. You're allowed to use your common sense and your experiences. What you're not allowed to do is rule by emotion. And that's the problem. And that's where objectivity in justice gets lost.
Yeah.
Have a good day, y'all. I'm going back to work.
Amber, thanks for your help. Enjoy.
Thanks, Calypso.
Sim, we didn't get a check-in from you. What part of the country are you from?
I'm from Michigan.
Michigan. All right. Wonderful. And who perfectly behaved Thal? Where are you at again?
Nebraska.
All right. Wonderful. All right.
Jumping off of what Amber was saying real quick, and back to conversation we were having earlier, I think one of the solutions to the way juries are, the problems that we are seeing with juries, is significantly better jury instructions. I think that a lot of this can be solved if we have good jury instructions that lay out everything in like a flow chart. Let's get them a flow chart. There we go. Can we just do a flow chart with the
Give them
jury
the tool.
verdict? Yeah.
Give them a tool to plug in what they know, and then based on what you understand, based on what you said, here's what your answer should be. Yeah, that would be like a
Hey Braxton, I love your idea, sir. One thing I would put in front of it is just a little caveat test that says, "What is a flow chart?" So we can.
That should be part of voir dire.
There you go.
Can you operate a flow chart?
If your answer is what is a flow chart, you are dismissed.
Yes.
But I think if we explain to juries what, and I think jury instructions do it okay in a lot of cases, but I think if it's possible to explain to them more of this is the mindset you need to be in. This is what the states or Commonwealth said this. This is the evidence they put forward. If this doesn't match what they said, then then you go to the next step. Because my problem here is that Commonwealth proved nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing. And I'm wondering if...
You mean it wasn't snowing?
The apron was clear. I know that much.
They proved that it was snowing, and they proved that there was reasonable doubt. That is what they proved. And I'm not sure how it's not obvious to the jury, other than they're voting on a motion or the lesser includeds, like we were saying. I think that
it has to do with the lesser includeds.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Because it says my mic isn't working.
It's not that mic. We're hearing your onboard mic.
Oh, all right. I need technical
I have
help.
a question.
Yeah.
Okay, say this is hung and they have to try this case again. What is it going to take to prove guilt? And will they change? Are they with the evidence that they currently have? They'll have to represent it. Is there anything they can do to change the way they presented it to get a guilty verdict in your mind? Mine is no. Second part of that question is, what do you need to see to go to the guilty side? What is it that you would have to see? I think we've talked about this before, but not with this group.
I think their cards are already been dealt in some ways that they can never get to a royal flush, right? Had they done the investigation properly, I think they could have gotten up there and just addressed the key facts, the broken taillight, whatever, and presented it, had a much better case than if they got up there and started with defending the Alberts and defending the McCabe's.
That's it.
You can't cut that out now. But you have to have that in there because you didn't investigate it on the front end. And now they're on their heels because they have to say, yeah, we did it wrong, but this is why. They're good people and they're nice and they were just drinking. Everyone had 2 White Claws and went home and it was a good party and nothing happened. They have to put something out there because there is this huge question that should have been answered during the investigation and it wasn't.
I know how they do it. They bring the FBI experts and they use their theory. He threw the glass, she reversed and hit him. She got angry because he threw the glass at her taillight and it broke and she was angry. You know what?
Okay,
that's a better
the lack of injuries.
Okay, what I'm saying is that's a better theory than what they presented.
Well, they need to stop with all the minutia, like Scott said, what they did in the beginning, bringing in the McCabe's and the Alberts. And, that was the first, I think, 20 somewhat witnesses was all geared on defending them instead of prosecuting their case. To me, that was a bad look. So they need to eliminate that. In order to prove your theory, Braxton, they're going to have to bring somebody in an expert to say that happened. Well, here's the problem with that. Even though the jury doesn't know it, they're going to find out afterwards. The Department of Justice and the FBI hired the crash daddies. You can't get any better than them. So how are they going to prove their own ME couldn't definitively say, yeah, his injuries are consistent with being hit by a car. And also,
yeah, they're not.
Go ahead. No, go.
They're absolutely not. Like, I think that you just have to take the car being the weapon out of it. Like, the car wasn't the weapon. Now, here's a video that I saw, and I sent this to you, RA, and I think we mentioned it yesterday. It was the video done by American Standard Dog Training. The Karen Reed murder trial conspiracy. He's a police canine expert, and it proved almost definitively in my mind that was a dog attack. Like, he laid out that theory beautifully. He laid out with the evidence that was shown. Like, it was a really good video. And he has a arm analog that they use for bites. And it's a cast of an arm, of a human arm. And he shows the dog bites that are in it. And he, bends it so you can actually see what the striations look like.